Hey y'all, Pyro Drake here. It's been a while, but I finally found the time and the motivation to make this video. I mentioned in my review for 13 Demons that I have a special love for bad movies. Birdemic is no exception. Many people agree Birdemic Shock and Terror is up there with the best, worst movies of all time. Let's go through it and you can see what I mean. So, our story starts out with 3 literal full minutes of driving. Now, don't worry if you miss even a second of this opening scene, as the movie spends a lot of time just driving around. For a movie that's supposed to portray environmentalism, they have a lot of scenes of cars starting, driving, and parking. Anyways, the first full half of this movie consists of our 2 leads, Rod and Natalie, meeting and falling in love. Oh, and absolutely everything that can go right for our leads does. It's as if they both keep winning the lottery over and over again. First, let's start with Rod. Well, we find out way later that his name is Rod, anyways. Mentioned for literally the first 30 minutes of the movie. Anyways, after our initial opening, Rod finally ends up at the Half Moon Bay Main Street Grill, where he meets our other lead, Natalie. They apparently went to high school together, yet neither of them are from the city where their high school was located. Not quite sure how that works.
Excuse me, miss. I think I know you from somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, did you go to San Mateo High School?
Yeah, how'd you know that?
I went there too. So are you from here?
Not really. What about you?
San Jose. I remember you now. You were in my English class. Yeah, I sat 2 seats behind you.
You remember that far?
Yeah.
I remember how you smelt every day in that class. I secretly took your picture each day. I can tell you what you wore any day you came to class. I would steal your brush, collect your hair, and sleep with it in my pillow.
I was wondering if we can keep in contact.
Sure. Here's my card.
Here's mine.
Thanks.
So, after breakfast, we see Rod, sitting down to breakfast. The only real indication that time has passed is that Rod is wearing a different shirt. Anyways, another 2.5 full minutes of driving, and getting stuck in traffic, we get to see Rod in his natural habitat, the cubicle. He offers a customer,
Okay, I'll give you that and 50% discount. Can we close the deal today?
he doesn't bother to get any crucial information, like what the customer is spending $1 million on, how they're going to make the payments, or any additional information from the customer at all. Regardless, Rod's friend Rick seems overly excited for the sale. He is so excited that he can't even talk straight.
What's with all the noise?
Our day then switches focus to Natalie. Her modeling audition apparently takes place at a 1-hour photo. Yeah, real glamorous. I can only assume that there's a camera in the changing room, as he has her change her clothes several times. As she's leaving, she gets a call on her bicycle bell phone that she was selected for the cover girl model for Victoria's Secret.
Victoria's Secret wants you to become their CoverGirl model.
You're kidding.
Bit of a jump from a 1-hour photo to Victoria's Secret. We shift our focus back to Rod as he makes his first contact with Natalie. This is also the first time we hear his name, nearly 13 minutes in. We also see that stuttering was a common occurrence on the set of the Birdemic.
Hello?
Natalie?
Who is this?
It's Rod. Hey, it was nice running into you at Half Moon Bay.
Unfortunately, second takes were more of a rarity. A word of advice: if someone calls you for the first time and says,
I think you'll look great in those lingerie.
hang up, change your number, and move to a new city. It's for the best. Anyways, they sort of make plans to have dinner at
No good Vietnamese restaurant.
no address or time frame, just any.
A good Vietnamese restaurant.
Cut to Rod and his friend Rick playing basketball, although I don't think they mentioned Rick's name yet. Anyway, according to him,
I know, man. What's with this weather? A heat wave in winter?
also,
I met this girl Natalie over the weekend. Yeah, we're going out this weekend.
didn't Rod ask if she wanted to meet for dinner, not lunch? When was that moved to this weekend? This movie plays with time so much, it's impossible to tell when anything is happening in relation to anything else. As if to prove this point, we cut to Rod having another breakfast. This time we learn of the Green Grand Prix event.
In other news, the first Green Grand Prix event was announced today in San Francisco. Part of the streets of San Francisco will be used as the racing course, and the drivers will be Hollywood celebrities.
This seems kind of dangerous. Don't you have to have pretty extensive training to race Grand Prix vehicles? Anyways, Rod is interrupted by a gentleman selling solar panels.
And that's, sir, is where we're going to install your solar panel?
20,000, huh? Is there any way we can lower the price?
For you, sir, I'll knock off $1,000.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
We finally move on to Rod and Natalie's date at
A good Vietnamese restaurant.
After a quick Google search, we can find very polarizing opinions on the T&K food market. They apparently have a great selection of products if you ignore the rancid sewer water leaking all over the place. Oh, and this guy just wanted everyone to know that he's been cooking Chinese foods since the 70s. Anyway, somehow Natalie found
A good Vietnamese restaurant.
The two go back and forth in some of the most mundane conversations I have ever heard in a movie. We hear about stock options, modeling, and a cat zoo?
So you're a cat lover.
If I could afford it, I'd have at least 10 of them.
Cat zoo?
After leaving,
A good Vietnamese restaurant.
we finally get our first look at some birds. Well, at least some CGI representation of birds anyways. Afterwards, we slam into night.
Beautiful, kind, compassionate, and intelligent. I hope you find her.
As for me, I'm mediocre, inconsiderate, callous, and vacuous, but I hope you find her. Rod brings Natalie home, and our date is mercifully put down. But not before Rod is shut down.
Can't I come in?
Not on the first date. I'm not that kind of girl.
Okay.
The next day, I'm assuming it's the next day anyways, Natalie visits her mom, who's in the middle of fixing lunch, which apparently consists of at least 2 platters of cold cuts and a veggie dip. Lovely. More stuttering later.
Well, keep me informed along the way.
She apparently doesn't believe a word Natalie says.
You're kidding. Is that right? No way! Are you serious?
Finally,
If things don't work out, it doesn't hurt to have a secure financial husband to support you.
she is modeling for Victoria's Secret. I'd say things have worked out pretty damn well. We now move on to another character, Mai. Her and Rick, which I think this is the first time we learn his name too, are at a hotel room, in bed, in front of an Imagine Peace sign with a website. I like to think that May can't have sex unless she has a constant reminder of Yoko Ono. I kind of feel bad for her. The site no longer exists. The last update in the Wayback Machine was November 22nd, 2018, so it stands to reason that Mai hasn't had sex since then. Anyways, they set up a double date. Before we can get to that, however, we are treated with another lottery win for Rod and Rick.
Our board of directors has agreed to the acquisition of NCT Software by Oracle Corporation for $1 billion.
This gets Rick so excited that he starts to hump Rod right here in the conference room. It gets the director so excited he loops the same scene of Rod getting humped from 5 different angles, being sure to get everyone's reaction. Literally, over 45 full seconds of clapping later, Rod and Rick talk about their newfound wealth. Rick suggests that Rod gets a Ferrari to impress Natalie, and we have probably one of the best lines in the film.
She's my hot Ferrari.
We also find out,
Besides, I love my Mustang, which is a plug-in hybrid. It gets 100 mpg.
and that he's going to open a green tech company.
Really?
Finally, Rick mentions their girlfriends are,
Planning on setting us up for a double date?
which, the way this is worded, sounds like Natalie and Mai are setting Rick and Rod up on the date, especially with Rick's little laugh at the end. After their double date, to see,
An inconvenient truth.
they confirm my earlier suspicion as Rick and Mai get so horned up that they cut their date short for sensual work.
Maya and I gotta get back to work, so, yeah, you know, sensual work.
Ugh. Moving on, Rod is requesting money to get his green tech company off the ground. How much is he requesting?
$10 million.
What is he trying to sell?
Solar panels.
Not sure what the difference between
Solar panels.
and solar panels are, but he of course gets his funding. So, up to this point, we have Rod's $1 million sale, NCT selling for $1 billion, his car getting 100 MPG, and now funding for $10 million. I'm beginning to see a trend, and that trend is round numbers. Moving on, their next date, Rod takes Natalie to a local arts and pumpkin festival, which, according to the sign, takes place between October 13th and 14th. This puts into question Rick's earlier comment about
A heat wave in winter?
So, either Rick jumped the gun about it being winter, Rod and Natalie have been dating for nearly a full year already, or the writer/director has issues with consistency. I'm gonna go with them dating for at least 8 months. Also, with her being a model for Victoria's Secret and Rod's stock options making him a millionaire, why would they go to some crappy pumpkin festival when they could be on their own private island off the coast of California? I know people try to live below their means, but this might be a little bit too low. I'm also relatively positive that none of these people actually signed a waiver to be in this film. It's also here that we get proof as to Rod's great intellect. It took nearly 10 full seconds for the thought,
Oh, lovers on the moon.
to reach Rod's mouth. Outstanding. It's here I feel I need to point out we're nearly 40 minutes in, and we have yet to see any signs of a Birdemic. Anyways, as Rod and Natalie try to speak over the sound of the raging ocean, Rod asks Natalie if she has a plan B.
You know, if your modeling career doesn't work out.
I'm beginning to wonder if modeling for Victoria's Secret is considered an entry-level modeling job in this universe. More wonderful sound design later.
I figure if I don't make it big by the time I'm 30, I figure I'll just take it from there.
They finally run into some dead birds. Well, a computer rendering of what dead birds may look like anyways.
Stop, don't touch it. It may be infectious.
It's a good thing Rod was there to remind Natalie not to touch the random dead animal carcasses. Moving on, Natalie finally brings Rod home to meet her mom, after like 8 months of dating. I go into more detail here, but we learn absolutely no new information. If you happen to fall asleep anywhere within the first 40 minutes, at least this will catch you up. Rod and Natalie next head to their local bar for more boring conversation. Life pro tip: if someone tells you,
All I want is you.
the appropriate reaction is never.
Are you sure?
On the flip side, if someone does say,
Are you sure?
after you tell them you want them, then really think about it. Well, at least the audio levels are so out of whack that we can barely hear Rod recap the previous 42 minutes. Again, in case you missed the previous scene with Nat's mom. And then we get to the greatest song on earth.
Just hanging out with the family, having ourselves a party.
To sum it up, the lyrics imply that he is hanging out with his family, having a party. This party apparently also has a lot of sexual activity.
And Uncle Phil is scoring, and the brothers can't wait to hook up to make sure that the fellas don't try any glass.
Now, I know I shouldn't expect too much from this flick, but there is one line in this song that really bothers me with how much it doesn't rhyme.
The big mama's in the kitchen, and everybody's wishing that she's fixing their favorite dish.
Dish. Now, I'm not a lyricist, but I'm positive there's a better word than dish to rhyme with kitchen. Maybe while Cousin Joe is fishing? Or in case they have an addition? Hell, I'd prefer simply changing it to dishin'. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but hell, neither does the rest of this film. Over 2 minutes later, this scene mercifully gets put down. Now, instead of going back to Rod or Natalie's place, they decide to check into a motel. Yes, the millionaire software salesman and the Victoria's Secret model check in to what appears to be a sleazy motel for sex. While panning over Natalie in lingerie, the TV in the background actually has birds on it. Caged birds being fed by an older woman, but birds nonetheless. As they lay on the bed, it pans down over the couple. Now, normally, I don't particularly care about people's feet, but when it shows Natalie's feet, I get the urge to gag. I think the actor playing Rod feels the same way, as it looks like he actively avoids touching the soles of Natalie's feet. Luckily, they fade out before we can see any more. So, for over the next minute, the movie feels the need to pan over all the locations we've already seen. Then, finally, we get to see what the Birdemic actually is. It apparently consists of computer-generated birds that filled themselves with either gasoline or napalm, dive-bombing a residential neighborhood. Mind you, we're just over 47 minutes in, and we still have 46 minutes left. Literally, the first full half of this movie is build-up for this bird attack. In addition to them having the most annoying sound effect. And having the ability to dive bomb and explode, they can apparently flutter in place too. Once this first group of birds finally leave,
I think they're gone.
Rod and Natalie decide to knock on doors to see if anyone else is still alive in this motel. Well, if anyone is alive in this one single room anyways. As luck would have it, someone was checked into the room they knocked on. We're then introduced to Ramsey and his girlfriend Becky. Evidently, Rod's cell phone battery is dead, he lost his car keys somehow, and Natalie's phone may have been lost or stolen, as she never tries to use it again.
Man, those birds were attacking all night. I can't find my car keys. I lost them somewhere.
Now, it takes a special kind of idiot to lose your car keys in a small hotel room, when that seems to be the only place they've been since the previous night. Ramsey, probably realizing Rod isn't the brightest, decides to take control of the situation. He arms the group with deadly coat hangers and suggests they go for his van outside. After another random audio drop,
use these two. Here you go.
They make it for the van. Becky doesn't know how to use keys properly, and due to the... I can barely hear why she's having issues. Luckily, Ramsey has several assault rifles, pistols, and tons of ammo in his van. For some reason. I can only assume that he and Becky were international art thieves on the run from the FBI. We're also privy to probably the worst idea in history.
Here, Rod, take a pistol.
Oof, bad move. They continue on as Ramsey litters the sky with bullets. After some more driving, I mean, you didn't think just because the Birdemic was in full force we wouldn't have any more driving scenes, did you? They stop to see if some dead people on the side of the road are still alive. Yes, I know how that sounds. Somehow, the birds killed these people while they were in their cars. I'm not sure why any of these people pulled over and left their windows down while the birds were attacking, but I guess it makes as much sense as anything else in this film. While traffic proceeds normally in both directions, our heroes come across two kids. I can kind of understand the girl hiding underneath the car, but I can't think of any scenario that puts that boy inside the trunk. Anyways, after fleeing the Birdemic once more, the girl, in the most monotone and robotic voice I've ever heard on film, introduces herself.
Susan. Well, we're gonna make this feel all better. Thank you. Thanks.
While the boy apparently fell asleep. We're actually not given the boy's name right away, but he wakes up just in time to thank Natalie for dressing his wound.
Thank you.
Less than a minute later, both kids seem to be pretty okay with the gruesome death of their parents, as long as they have video games to play. Anyways, they've been driving for a minute and 14 seconds, so it's time to stop again. Remember, when planning a long road trip, schedule frequent breaks as to not get fatigued while driving. This time we end up at a convenience store, and here is actually where we finally get the boy's name.
Let's get some pepperoni too.
While Natalie grabs presumably 12 sandwiches, then considers getting a nice red wine to go with them, Ramsey pulls them out of there before the birds can come and attack.
Let's go, guys. The Eagles are coming.
Now that they have some food, they drive to a beach in San Gregorio to eat, because sitting out in the open rather than in the van makes a lot of sense, I guess? Also, according to Google, it's only a 16-minute drive from Half Moon Bay to San Gregorio. If I were to go by what we see in the movie, it seems they've been on the road for hours, just to go about 10 miles. Anyway, it's at this stop that we meet the expository character, Dr. Jones. We learn from him, well...
But there is scientific evidence to show that because of our burning of fossil fuels and creating greenhouse gases, which is causing global warming, it's raising the temperature of the seas, and species like the krill are dying. So many bird species can't find food, like the nutrient krills.
Honestly, I'm not sure what we're supposed to learn from him. He's very dry and goes on for over 2 full minutes. We also get a pretty mixed message. On one hand, global warming is the cause of all the world's problems. On the other hand,
if they attack me, got a little oppressive. I've got my truck and my trailer. Because of his fossil fuel related activities, he's causing global warming. It's killing life and Earth itself. We must act more like astronauts.
So to prevent global warming, we must do things that burn fuel and cause global warming. Wait. Also, right after, Natalie says,
"Well, you certainly know a lot about birds."
The sound cuts out and we get probably the best "what the hell" face from Becky that I've ever seen on film. After another back on the road scene, they pull over again for Becky.
Where's Becky? She's taking a shit.
When sleeping, it's always a good idea to keep an assault rifle aimed directly towards your heart and head. That way, if it should go off, you don't have to suffer. They also use this scene as a flimsy excuse as to why Ramsey has a seemingly endless supply of guns and bullets.
How come you're still on the Marines?
I just got tired of all the fucking killing in Iraq.
You know, because all retired Marines keep a van full of weapons and ammo. Anyways,
She's taking a shit.
Becky gets killed. After spraying some more rounds into the air, the others continue their voyage. For about 5 more seconds.
Hey, those people on that bus are being attacked by those birds.
They then come to a tour bus with 3 people in it, and Ramsey wants to stop and help. Rod brings up that they don't have the room, which is strange as the van he's driving comfortably seats 7, and Ramsey provides the strangest argument as to why they should stop.
They killed Becky. What if it was Natalie?
I'm not sure what that has to do with either of their arguments, but apparently it was enough to convince Rod to pull over. After chasing away the birds, Ramsey politely asks the bus passengers to join them in his van.
No! Come on!
No!
Go!
At gunpoint. It's here we get to see the birds' next big attack, acidic pee. It looks painful too, as it takes nearly a full minute to kill these guys. After a sufficient amount of time to grieve...
They're dead already!
Yeah, you're right.
Let's get the hell out of here.
They continue on their pilgrimage. Just to remind you, we still don't know where they're going, why they're going there, or even how this all started. At least we find out they are headed towards Redwood City in the next shot. Several more seconds of driving later, we end up at a gas station. Their phone is out and he's selling gas for $100 per gallon, but they can still take credit card.
It's $100 a gallon if you want.
Fine.
That's impressive. Halfway into pumping though, the birds attack again. Now, I know there's a sign on gas pumps that say no smoking or cell phone use. I wonder if tiny handheld explosions from his gun are okay next to the gas pump. It doesn't really matter anyways, as seconds later, they pull over again. This time, we run into Cowboy Mick Stoneface, asking Rod to sell him some gas. When they tell him they don't have gas to sell, Stoney makes a great sales pitch.
You can sell me some gas now.
Oh, take it easy, take it easy. I got an extra tank in the back.
Good, get it.
After the birds kill the cowboy, Rod decides it's best to leave the gas and the gun for the next person that runs out of gas here.
Rod, let's get out of here.
After a few more seconds of driving, I think we might have finally hit the 10-mile mark. Rod suggests that they stop at a stream for some water, and Natalie replies with an expression that says, "Ugh, whatever." It's here we meet one of my favorite characters.
I'm Tom Hill.
Tom goes on and on about how the bark beetles are eating the trees, global warming is causing untold disasters, and that the birds are only attacking people in cars and at gas stations. Yet I can't take him seriously because of how much he looks like Woody Harrelson in a wig. Although it is interesting that Rod introduces Natalie and the kids to him using his gun. Anyways, a supposed mountain lion, growls at them, forcing our heroes to run through a section with...
Smells like wood burning.
To get back to their van. Anyway, a few seconds of driving later, and they end up where their friend Mai lives. Moving towards Mai's house, they see Mai's car on the side of the road, pointed towards her own house. Just like the previous victims, Mai and Rick are dead in their car. Again, they seem to have pulled over to the side of the road, parked their car, and held hands before getting killed. At least Mai gets to tell Nat. Does she mean the birds? I'm not sure it's going to matter if they're forgiven or not. They're birds, not people. Another few seconds of mourning for their friends, and they're back on the road. For another 10 seconds.
Damn it! We ran out of gas!
At least this setback, we can directly link back to something Rod did wrong. Rod decides to check in the back of Ramsey's van for anything useful, and he finds a fishing rod and portable stove. I'm assuming he dug through 10 boxes of bullets and several dozen assault rifles and handguns in order to get to them. After catching a fish and collecting some seaweed, they cook them with no preparation whatsoever and attempt to have the kids eat it first. I'm assuming to see if it's poisonous.
Yuck, I want Happy Meal. Me too.
Luckily, the kids are smarter than that and refuse to take that first bite. Unfortunately, we don't get to see them get sick or poisoned from their ill-prepared food, as the birds attack once more. And finally, running out of bullets, the birds menacingly hover at them. This bird is so excited to hover at them, he actually cuts off the tips of his wings. Also, it appears Rod took the advice of all the other previous casualties he's come across and left his window wide open for the birds to have a fighting chance. Out of gas, out of food, and nowhere left to run, it seems like our hero's luck has finally run out. At least that's how it appears, until out of nowhere, literally, these guys just appear over the freaking ocean. White doves appear. I guess they, chase these other birds away?
Look! They're leaving!
The closing line? We don't get an answer to this, nor closure as to what the rest of the world is going through, but at least Natalie, Rob, Susan, and Tony survived. And Susan does not look too pleased by that fact. Tony just seems anxious. Then, just like the opening credits, we're treated to a full 3 minutes of closing credits. One of the things we learned from the credits is the Osborns and the Seymours were all cast as dead people. I don't know why, I just find that amusing. So, that was it. Birdemic, Shock, and Terror. As the credits roll, our leads stand there and watch as the birds that killed everything and everyone they love fly off into the distance. This is definitely up there as one of my favorite bad movies. If you ever get a chance, definitely check it out. If you've actually watched up to this point, thank you so much. And as they say, feel free to like, subscribe, notify, whatnot. Thanks again, and have a great day. Peace.